So what I'm going to do today, some of you have been here before, some of you haven't, I feel like. We're going to start from signing in. I'm going to kind of go through the process of how you prepare an offer for a purchase, using dotloop system, setting out for signatures, adding people in, how you would attach a document from your computer and upload it to dotloop, how you would find a file that isn't in a template already in dotloop, how to submit it for review to management to make sure your file's reviewed. Probably other things that I'm not saying right now. Along the way, if you have questions and they're what we're working on right then, great. Feel free to ask them, okay? If you have something that's kind of outside of the path we're on right now, write it down. It's not that I don't want to hear it, but if we start going into different places to answer questions, then people that are kind of following along with us, it's tough to get back to where we were before. So if you have a question outside of kind of the path we're running right now, write it down. I'll definitely have time for more questions later. But if it's, so it's like, well, how do you change the settings for this font, but I'm doing something totally different? Well, it's going to kind of get us way off task. So try to keep the questions on the path we're going. If you think of something as you're going, if it's not totally pertinent, write it down. We'll get back to it for sure. That's it. So it's pretty basic from the beginning, but we'll kind of go from there. First thing, if you do not have a dotloop account that, see if I can get my password right the first time today. Never get it right. Got it, second try. All right, if you log into your account and you do not see a Big Samson Properties logo up there and a Business Plus because we're a premium account, you are not in the correct account, okay? You created something on your own or you did something else, that's fine. Shoot me an email or talk to me. We'll get you set up. When you come over to the top right, you see your initials. You would probably see multiple profiles by then, or if you see one and it's not a Samson Properties profile, you're in the wrong spot. We can either merge the one you've got with the Samson one or invite you into a new one. Yours should be set up, right? Yeah. They fixed you, I think. Yes. It's happened to a lot of people. They tried to catch all of them when they first signed us up, but they certainly did not catch them all. Top right, where your initials are. Okay. Now, I have a bunch because I'm the admin for each office, but you should just really have one. One profile. If you have multiple, there might be some reason for it, but really just want to have one profile. But if you log over this and see, one that's Samson Properties, then you click on something that's something else, then you've probably got something else going on there. You want to make sure you got one profile because that will definitely cause some concerns later because you'll have functionality in the other account that doesn't match up to what we're looking for because we have a premium account that should be the best stuff. That's where all your templates and all that kind of fun stuff will be as well.
Now, I haven't done a whole lot with this. In terms of logging in,
yes.
What's the starting point?
So it was dotloop.com. That's what I was just on, where I logged in and got to this page. So dotloop.com, and you've got to log in there. If you have not received, if you have never logged in before, shoot me an email. I can resend your invitation. Send it to Donny Samson at samsonproperties.net. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 accounts. How do I get rid of one of them?
Shoot me an email to remind me, and I can't merge them, but our contact rep can, our dotloop rep. I said it to remind me because I might not remember when I leave here after I talk for 2 hours. But if you shoot me an email, I will have it merged, no problem. And he normally does it within the same day, as soon as he can get to a computer and do it. So now that I'm in here, yes.
They can also just search in their email where you sent it to them before, probably too.
They could, yes. If I've sent, there are a couple people that didn't get original invitations, so it's possible that you didn't get one because I didn't personally send them all out. dotloop did, and it's possible they missed some people on the phone list for whatever reasons. Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Because if you're not in the right profile, the other key is if you're not in your correct profile, that in the bottom here, so it's a good first place to step. If you have questions, at the bottom there's an 800 or 500 number, support number down here, and you have a member ID. If you're in Samson's account, as you see on the top, and you have the correct member ID, you get VIP customer service. We will go right through and be able to get a phone answer quickly. If you do not, you'll find out that you sometimes can wait an hour or two to get through to them to talk to them. But using your member ID should get you correct right through fairly quickly to get to talk to somebody that can help you out. So now I'm logged in. Couple keys just to kind of orient yourself with the board before we get going. Up here there's a dashboard button. If you click it, it really just shows you your loops completed year to date. So as you use this for all your deals, you'll actually be able to tell you how many total sales and price and all that kind of stuff. So it could be cool as you get going, but not really a huge deal. This is loops. That's where you're going to do most of your work. We'll talk about that in a second. Tasks. If you wanted to set up tasks lists, say that 5 times fast. If you want to set up a task list for yourself, you can actually set up task lists in here that will automatically email you if you put due dates on here and stuff. So this is a general task list for yourself as an agent if you want to set one up. Within each loop, you'll see later that you have task lists within each loop that you can use or not use. So don't feel the pressure to use them, but know that they're there. People, this might just be in my account because I have all the admin stuff. Templates, we're going to set up templates for you. Are there already some set up for you? If you want to set up your own templates, that would be the place to do it, where you could go and create your own template with your own forms that you want to use so that when you log in, you say, I want to set up a purchase, or it pulls the 10 forms that you're used to using. Now, we've gone in here and set up some templates for you. My Maryland folks will tell me that we need to do better and get up some templates for them, and we're working on it as soon as I find some free time. If you have a suggestion for a template that we can use universally, I'd love for you to send it over. Because I just don't do a lot of Maryland deals. So for Mike and I, a little bit, we're kind of picking and choosing which forms to put together on there. We're trying to get all the forms up so that people at least have the forms access there for everything. So now we've seen all that. Loops is kind of the main button you're going to go to. Oh, and then on the right here is profile. If you ever want to change your email address or the way your name reads or anything, this would be the place to come into my account and do that. Some people are like, well, my name doesn't read the way I want, then you can easily change that yourself over here in my account. So if you click on loops, so there's 2 ways to look at your loops. There's a list view right here. And then on the right here, there's see where my cursor is up here in the top right, switch to grid view. Shows you the loopy loops in case you like seeing the circles. You know, it's
Access the list view again?
we're in the top right here where my cursor is.
That's the loopy view, but you said there's a list view.
Just keep clicking this.
Oh, it's a toggle. Okay.
Yeah, it's a toggle. So it goes from list view to grid view. I like list view myself. The other thing about list view is, so I'm going to show you here how to create a loop and stuff, but later, so you see this loop right here. It says listing for sale, Cabin Point Court, that's my house. Select loop status. I'm going to encourage you that when you're done here, the best thing for you is come in and do 3 or 4 tests. Do some tests. Act like you're selling your own house or act like you're buying your own house. It takes a few minutes, but then you're going to be more confident when you actually get the chance to write a contract with somebody. I've used the system 3 or 4 times. Now, see if I have any tests still hanging out here from before. Doesn't appear that I do because I've archived them. So when I'm done, if I don't want to see this anymore, I can change it to archived, and I can update my filters. So I can choose not to show archive listings, and it's gone there. So when you click update your filters here, it lets you see what do I want to see on my screen every time. If I selected archived, it would come back. Yeah. So it's still, you can't delete anything out of dotloop systems. You see all my class tests and all. They've set up the system so you can't delete everything out of it. I guess they had something a few years ago where somebody accidentally deleted a bunch of files and they were all, so now that you can't delete anything, it just goes to archive status. So if I don't want to see it anymore, so now that I added archived in, you can see all these tests I've done before, which were muddying up my page. But do tests, run them, change their status to archived right here, and then update your filters if you don't want to see them anymore. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. So update your filters. And then up here it'll say which things do you want to show up. So archived was the status. So if I check that box, now it's not going to show me them. Now it is. So now it's not, and then I just click filter, and all my test loops are gone now. So if you don't want to see them anymore, that's the place to do it. Now there's no downside in seeing all your tests on there. You're the only person that could see that. Well, I guess we could if we wanted to find them, but there's no real reason for us to find them. What I would just do is make sure I include some kind of word like test or something in there so that people don't start to look at it as real for any reason. So that's kind of just an orientation of what the loops page looks like. What we're going to do today is, if you were going to create a loop, right here. Now a loop is anything, any kind of transaction. So if I'm going to start a buy, a sell, anything, I've got to create a loop to do that. So right here I'm going to create a loop. We're going to name it for today. We're going to say class test. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, which I've learned recently. Okay, as I start to type Donny, now, if you are going to write a contract on, say, Samson Properties listing or somebody else that has dotloop, see how it's come in here right now? And it says source dotloop. So as you start to type the address, say I typed in 2607 North Avenue, I could click that, and all of a sudden, that loop's already been created by somebody else, so it kind of merged so that I could send it right into their loop and they could send it back to mine if it was the listing agent. So a quick shortcut, if you wanted to merge loops, say I was writing a contract on your listing and it was already created. If I clicked right there, it would pre-fill a lot of the information that you've already added in there, like seller's information and a lot of the listing information. So if you see it in there, click it.
He's not seeing what I'm doing.
He's not going to see what you're doing unless you share it with it. Yep, exactly. But at least you can work with some of the same information that's already in there. And as a Samson company here, we've only got kind of one to work with, so it's a little bit easier. But don't feel like you have to, but that is a place that you'll see that there. The other,
That only happens
if it's already been created in dotloop by,
same company or?
no, anybody. Even if it's Keller Williams agent that had see it said source dotloop. It didn't necessarily say source Samson Properties dotloop. So if it's already been created in dotloop, at least then there's just one loop out there that exists, that's merged into. Now you're still going to have your own separate workspaces, so it's not like you're
saying that it obviously does not share all the information.
does not share all the, doesn't share anything unless you share with it, but it tells them like the pertinent, the generic information will fill in for you. It's just one tip. You don't have to do it, but it's a way to merge files. I had one that was doing a Samson buyer and Samson listing. They ended up like having all these loops because they were never merging at any point. So like they had two on their side, they had two over here because they kept sharing stuff back and forth, and it was kind of a mess. But oh, there you are. Hi. So did you see where that was?
I'm sorry?
Did you see where that showed up there? It said source.loop. So that's where you would merge it originally, if you were doing that. And also when you create the file. That wasn't to pick on you. I just learned that 2 days ago too.
Also, there was no file already there.
So it's possible they haven't created it yet. Right. So if they had, though, it would be there theoretically.
You say source dot loop?
That means it's already in .loop. Yeah. So the other thing is, if I start to write in an address here, see I start to type my address? It will also say, it has every Google Maps. It actually has my address right there. So you could fill it in right there as well. Now for this, I'm just going to label it the date so I know which one we're working on the rest of the day here. Whoa!
Make sure it's by the
I just messed up. Okay, so I missed a key step there, which I'm going to, because I accidentally hit return. All right, so the other key thing is we're going to select a template. All right, so I could do blank listing, no documents, if I just want to create my own and kind of add my own documents. What you're going to do most of the time is select one of these, especially if you're MVAR, because we've set those up well. We have set up a couple for VAR, MAR, and GCAR that at least will give you a starting point. Now for us, we're going to do an MVAR residential purchase. We're going to work with a buyer today. Once we select that, we create their loop. And we have a loop page here. Now, orienting to a loop page, just to kind of get a full overview of what we're going here. We got documents up top, which we'll talk more about. In the middle, you've got some local service providers. We put your local mortgage and title people in there in case you need to get in touch with them. You've got your people section. So, in the people section, disregard anything that ever says admin. I don't want you sending anything to admin. I don't want you including them in anything. I'm trying to get them out. They're having system issues trying to get them out of there because they still want us to be able to see your files. But you're never sharing anything with us. You're never doing anything like that. Act like anything you say admin, act like it doesn't exist. Okay? I know it's confusing, but just work with me on that one. Donny Samson, Sales Properties is me. I'm the agent. Steve LaFave should automatically default to your buying broker. in Virginia. Ernesto would in Maryland. If it was this as a listing I created, it would automatically default to him as the listing broker, which you'll see later as we're putting in forms is helpful because then he's already tagged for you to put all your signatures in there. At the bottom, so this was the original task list or the turn-in sheet that Samson had for listings. You do not have to go through and use this, but it is a good reference sheet if you can figure out if you're turning in and working on all the sheets that you need to submit any kind of file. Now, if you wanted to, you could come in here and set due dates for all these, and it would send you email reminders when something's due. You can also change these tasks. You can add a task list. You can move something to the top. You can click here and you can rename it. So say I wanted to rename this home inspection removal. Okay? I could change it to home inspection removal. I could say remind me this week, March 12th, or I could say it's due on next week or whatever. So I can change that to whatever I want. So if you've got 10 tasks that you think of you want to set up during the deal, you can use this. Now, task lists are too much for some people. They don't want to do much with the system. Totally fine. But know that functionality is in here if you want to set up your own to-do list, add dates to it. It'll email you every day to make sure you're on top of your stuff.
It emails you.
Yeah, you can set up so it emails you every time,
Okay.
So it will give you a heads up. Or as you log into the loops, if you're past due date, this will turn red, or this will turn, like say I did this. Say I did specific date and say it was due yesterday. Well, now as I log in, you can see it's turned red because it was supposed to be done yesterday. So now I'm like, whoa, I'm behind on that. So if you had set up dates on these and you logged in, you'd say, oh, I'm behind on getting my commission disbursement done, or I'm behind on doing this or that. So it can be good to kind of light up and help you. Again, not necessary, but shows you the functionality you've got within each file, and you can change those around to what you want to do.
Does the loop reflect what you attached to? Doesn't it give you a flag or a number if you go back to the top?
It may. It probably would. I haven't done enough with task lists to let you know.
And Donnie, when you're showing those, when you flip by those people, you choose those people. In other words, if we use a different loan officer, in other words, they tag me for a Lake Ridge office.
Yes.
Because I spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
But I don't use them. I use the gentleman that you've got up there.
That's fine.
So now, how do I?
You can add them right here if you wanted to. But really, you don't have to do anything with these. These are just reference points to make sure that they're there. But if you wanted to share something, say with, Joe Smith, who works out of the Gainesville office,
Right.
You can add this person right here.
Okay.
So he's able to share with later.
Okay.
So you can say his role is the lender,
Lender, good. Okay.
loan
I
officer.
didn't know if I was allowed to.
No, you can add whoever you want in there. What we've done is we've given you direct contacts to Cardinal and the First Heritage loan officers that are assigned to your office so that you've got easy contacts there. But you can use whoever you want, obviously. But we're just trying to help people along there.
Donnie, the purpose of the people are for folks that are members of dotloop?
Nope. So these are going to be people, and you'll see where I'll add these in a second. But this is going to be anybody involved in the transaction.
So let's say let's say I need pests now. A
Yep.
pest inspector. Can I?
Yeah, you could, but you wouldn't need them really. It's really anybody that's going to be shared anything through dotloop, and you're probably not going to use now they've got roles in there for your inspector and your termite and all that, but to me, I don't think you'd ever need to do that in the sense that, see, they've got a lot of different possibilities in here, but you're moving in storage. I mean, I'm not really sharing anything with these people, right? Insurance rep, inspection, warranty. I'm probably in home security. It's great, but they're never really going to see any of my .loop files, right? So I really wouldn't have a need to add in anybody but maybe a title person, a lender, and your brokers, and obviously the parties in the deal.
Donnie,
Yes, ma'am.
I had created original listing template, and at that time you didn't have a listing broker or buying broker, just a managing broker.
Mm-hmm.
Until last night, I tried to have amendment, sending Steve. Many times I did, no place to sign. It's still managing broker is there. I can't somehow change it.
You're going to have to go into your template and change it.
Yeah, I
Because
can't change it.
if you created your template in the first couple weeks before we switched it to listing and buyer brokers, it's confused because we called it managing broker for a while.
I can't do it, so, and then I couldn't save, they just messed, so I need help in the future.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is, that's probably too big. I'm just trying to make it a little bigger for you. So now we've got it, we kind of know what's in our loop here, or kind of how it's set up. Now we're going to start working on a file. So on the right here, you see these 3 dots. You can actually drag things to a better order if you like to. I prefer to pull up the couple things that I'm going to work on for each file so that they're more, up here and they're in my mind's eye, so to speak. So let's just do, we're not going to do every form for, because we'll be here forever. But
Make our template show up that way? Do we have that
if you
ability?
created your own template, you probably could. I don't think you could edit ours that way. And I don't even know what order they're coming up in, to be honest. I didn't select this order. But yes, you could. The other thing you can do is this. Say I log in from the beginning, and you say, look, I'm not going to use these 3 forms, and I'm tired of looking at them. Okay, I can select those 4 and archive. All right, now my list has gotten shorter. So say I'm never going to use, say it's not well and septic, and it's not lead-based paint.
You can't say never, never.
Right, well no, for this loop. So not a template, but for this loop it's not, right? So now I've shortened my list a little bit too, to stuff that may or may not come up during it.
So if you can unarchive those and bring those back,
You could on archive, yes. Show archived right here.
if there's such a term.
Yeah, so right here there's a button that says show archived. If I click that, they're all going to come back up.
Oh, good, okay.
You can see they're shaded down here, so I can make them back in again, or I could hide the archived because I don't want them in here. So yes, if you just look, I know these 6 or 7. We had to get, it was a fine line Mike and I had. It's like we want to have enough in there that almost everything's going to be covered, but also not so much that you got to go through so much. So some of those things are not going to apply to every deal. There's also going to be some that I'm going to show you where to add a form that we didn't throw into the template. So let's just get started writing our thing. Let's say we're writing a contract, and we're going to do these 6 forms, all right? Nah, probably not this one. We're going to do disclosure, buyer agreement, regional sales contract, all this kind of fun stuff, and where's residential property disclosure? All right. So bang. So I got these 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click open. So here, Madonna, is where you're going to get into adding some people. So I'm going to select a buyer. I'm going to click add a person normally, right? Unless they're already in there. Remember, never select Samson Properties or headquarters. Those are those admins. Okay, Donnie's me. Steve is my buyer's broker. So I'm really adding people almost all the time. So here I'm going to do Jeff Buyer. I'm going to use, I'm going to use my personal email address here because we're going to sign stuff during the process. They're the buyer. I could type in more information for them if I wanted to here. Normally, that's really all you need is name and email, though, and to make sure their role is the buyer. We're going to add this person. God bless you. We're going to add in one seller. Sally, seller. Now, if you're in a buy contract, you probably don't know their email address, right? And I probably don't need to know it because I'm not sharing anything with the seller. They're not my client. Theoretically, you could put it in there if you did have both sides of a transaction or something. But for this purpose, you don't really need to, right? So really all I need is I need their name in there because they're going to go through to a bunch of different documents. A buying agent is me, correct? A listing agent, we're going to say it is Mike Briggs. It gave me his email, so I'll just use that. So we're going to put in his name and email because I will surprise steer stuff with the listing agent at some point, right?
So Donnie,
Yes.
when you add your buyer,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems that there's a choice here, because if you share this file or this loop with the listing agent,
You're only going to they're only going to get the information, the documents that you share with them. They will not.
add an email, I'm email, do they see that email? That you, if you add the email, if you want to get notified if you want to receive notices yourself, that stuff comes to you. You don't want anyone to have your buyer's email.
No, they're only going to get, by adding their email address in here, it gives you the ability to share documents with them later, but they're never going to get access to anything, any documents that you didn't directly share with them. They're not going to get document to your buyer's email, no. They're not going to see any of that stuff.
Other side won't.
All they're going to do is, by putting their email in now, later when I click Mike Briggs to share stuff with him, it knows where to email it to him. But he doesn't have access to my loop, he doesn't have access to my buyer's information, nothing like that.
Okay, so where notices go, that's the different area.
That's a different area. That's in the actual contract, yes. So we're going to add Mike. That's probably all I need. Steve's in as the buyer broker. I don't need a warranty. Buyer agent, listing agent, one buyer, one seller. Feel pretty good about that. Here you could put in address or MLS number. They're about 3 weeks away from being able to integrate with our MLS and pull in all the data. For now, you just have to type it in. Whoops. I moved too quickly. It will pull up the address either from dotloop. So this is where I was showing you before. So say somebody's created a file already in dotloop. So you can still connect it here as you put in the property address. See that top one, it says source dotloop? If you wanted to merge with another one that's already been created, that would be the place you could click that right there. I'm not going to do it because that guy in Georgia is going to be like, who's this guy Donnie writing a contract on my property? But so you can see my address pulled up in Google Maps. I'm going to select it there, save myself a little bit of time. I don't really need to put in all this stuff here. I could put in the purchase price, earnest money amount, and all that. I'm going to put in not closing date, offer date. Offer date's today. That'll fill in some stuff with me. I could put in purchase price. It'll fill in some stuff later for me. So I'll show you that. Now I don't have to because I can fill it out when I'm actually filling out the contract later. But if you want to put in more information here, you can. For Steve, it's going to include his buying broker. It's going to include his email. I could put in more information there if I wanted to, but no need to. Once I'm done, I'm going to autofill. Five roles have been assigned is what that says there. 37 fields have been autofilled. Okay, so I could click undo if I didn't like what happened there, but I feel pretty good that did good work.
So you went up and hit autofill in there? I must have been looking at notes. You went up and hit autofill actually?
No, when I was filling out that form, on the bottom was a big button that said autofill. So it's put in the date here. Jeff's the buyer, Sally's the seller, Samson Properties. If I had given Mike a listing brokerage company, it would have pulled in here, but I didn't remember. All I did was Mike Briggs and gave his email address. Red Star Realty is the listing brokerage, representing the buyer. So you can see the address pulled through. The $500,000 pulled through because I said that was the purchase price. We're going to put 20% down. We're going to finance 80%. We're going to obtain a conventional loan. I'm not going to click all these boxes all the way through, but just showing you, you can fill these out. Now, a couple tips here. If I'm in this 80% box, okay, as soon as I click in a box, you see some stuff comes up here. I can change the font. I can change the size. Now, I can't make it any bigger than there because you can see the field is too small to support this. So I can change it as big as it'll let me here. The other cool one people like is it will center it. Especially if you've got some words in something, you can center it or right shade it if you'd prefer to have it that way. I can bold it. You know, I can change the text color to blue. I can highlight it. You know, so you can do some cool stuff here if you really wanted to make it stick out for some reason. Okay? If I come in this box, highlight it green, whatever. There's no rule that you can't send over green highlighted contract. But if for some reason you want to point something out, you could use, just know that that functionality is in there. To change the fonts, as soon as I click in here, say I don't like that my address is all the way over there, I can go in that box and center it. Now I've got a little bit cleaner in that sense. So just showing you that functionality is in there. Now important to see, on the bottom of each page. So Sally Seller and Jeff Buyer are my people, right? Well, this is showing you that if I were to send this out for signature, this is where it's tagged these people. The extra seller and extra buyer are if there was 2 buyers and 2 sellers. So none of this is going to show up on paper, but this is showing you, if I share this later for signature, this is where they've pre-tagged it. In case I'm unaware of where those tags are going to be, that's where they are. $5,000 deposit to Cardinal Title Group. I wrote that in before. Just for completeness purposes, I'll do a couple of these things here. We're going to close quick on the 31st. We're going to close with Cardinal Title Group. This would be where you put in delivery stuff. That's not really any function of the actual loop and where it's going, but this is kind of like the contract and where I want delivery sent to later. So this is where we'd write in buyer and seller's information, whatever we wanted to share here. You can see as we're scrolling down each page, my initials are still hanging with me because it's pre-selected that way. A lot of this just fill out the contract like you normally would, so I'm not going to kind of go over each chattel. You guys know how to do that by now. If you don't, you can come on Saturday and take Steve's contract class. And take a minute here to load each page.
Donnie, what did you say about pre-selecting the initials?
As soon as I put the buyer in as my person, when I auto-filled to start there, I had buyer 1 as Jeff Buyer and Sally as the seller. Well, the page is smart enough to know where all the buyer signatures goes, where all the seller signatures go, where all the broker signatures go. So if you have them, it'll use this form. If you upload your own later, you got to upload your own. Yes, but if you're creating the form in here, then yes, and I'll show you where later to add something that if I'm uploading my own form, how to tag it. But if I'm creating the form like I am here, it's smart enough to know where all the tags are, which is great. Really helps you a lot. But as you're going through, at least you can make sure that it's on each page. I can't imagine why the computer would somehow skip it, but at least it makes you feel better to know where everybody's signing. It would also let you know if you had 2 sellers and only one was showing up, you'd be like, all right, I put something wrong in. I got to go up and put them in the seller 2 placeholder. Yes, ma'am.
The initial over there, don't you have to have approval for your DocuSign before that?
So I haven't sent it out for signature yet. That's just showing you if I send it out for signature later, where it's going to ask for it. I'm never going to ask for Sally's signature because she's not my client, but it's just showing you if you were to send this out, this is where we think the buyer and seller signatures are going to be automatically tagged. So your buyer, I am going to send it to Jeff the buyer later, but once I share it to him later, you'll see that it'll make more sense later, but know that I'm not getting Sally's signature probably there, right? Because Sally's not my client. But it would show you if I did share this with the seller and I had their email address and their right to send it to them, that's where seller would sign, that's where buyer is tagged to sign. But if I printed this right now, those wouldn't show up. Those are just for me as I'm working through it to see where they've pre-tagged stuff for me, if that makes sense.
You're really working on the real contract,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so over there will be blank right now.
It'll be blank if I were to print this. Yep. But if I go to share it and send it for somebody's e-signature, then if I shared it with Jeff, all those spots would be tagged. And I'll show you that in a second too. So I'm scrolling through here. Click with addendums apply. Page 15, still go through. Now 16 will have signatures. So you can see it says Sally's going to sign here. Jeff would sign here. If I had additional people, they would come in here. Red Star Realty, that's all I've put in so far. I could put in more about them. This is what it knows enough about me. How does it know? That's not even my memorized agent ID. I wonder why it thinks that. Anyway, it's probably somehow they set it up. It's probably like my dad's or something. But, oh, I know why they did that. Okay, don't worry about it. Your MRS agent ID would come in here because it would be attached to you. Has all Samson's information. Now the other addendums are in here too, right? Because we attached, remember when we started, we did 5 check marks. So we have our conventional financing addendum. And you can see that my initials still hanging with me, which is great. Obviously I'm going to fill stuff out in here if I was filling out a contract for real. Sally, Jeff, I think buyer broker might be next. exclusive representative rep buyer. So I've got Jeff and Samson Properties in here. This one's just between me and my buyer, right? So I'm going to put in a date here. I can fill in some more information here. The buyer's email, because I put Jeff's email as this. Brokerage information, terms of the deal. Now, this one's a little different. Jeff's the buyer, right? JB. Now, this says, can be signed by a buyer or broker, Steve LaFave. So that, see, it's already tagged for Steve to sign this when I send it out, which is great. I don't have to do anything to add anything in there. Now, if you wanted to change from Steve, you would change the buyer broker and change the name in there, right? But because I put him in that pre-slot for buyer broker, it automatically tags him here. This would be if there was a second buyer, but there's not in this case. So Jeff came down again. Steve came down again. Jeff and Steve. I think this would be signature pages. Jeff's going to sign here. If we had other buyers here, buyer broker's going to sign here. Buyer agent information is me. I pulled in some information on me. I think I included one or two more forms here. Home inspection, just for completeness. Got some initials. Obviously, I'd fill in data. You guys understand that if I was actually sending this contract. Sally and Jeff. Sally and Jeff. Affiliate business disclosure. Now this was a form that we uploaded from Samson to be able to put in your loop here so it's easier to share with them. And you can see it's actually even tagged that with Jeff and Sally so that we can send that to get disclosure to get signed at the same time. Marketing services agreement, Jeff and Sally, so this shows if we would disclose about the 210 arrangement we have. Residential property disclosure, Sally and Jeff as well. So just showing you that you can put in as many forms as you want there. Now, if for some reason it was missing a signature, say it didn't say Jeff here. Now it will, but say you added some form that wasn't pre-tagged by us. So you would click on that spot. You see where it says assigned to Jeff buyer up there? I can change who it's assigned to. I don't want Jeff to sign there. I want Mike Briggs. Or if it's somebody that doesn't exist yet, I want to add that person in. Okay? Now, theoretically, we've added the people we needed to before we started, like we did here. But if you, say I needed to change who this was for some reason, I could click on that spot and change who it was that was signing. Okay? Now, it shouldn't be. Or if I had a blank form, say this PDF form. Now, we've already added in here, but say you added in this marketing services agreement and it had no tags on it. Well, then I could add a signature here, and put them in there. Okay, so you see I could add a signature. It's right here. And I could drag this somewhere. And I can either sign it myself or I can assign this field to Steve, okay, or whatever. All right. Now, you see how I could add a signature here? Well, and add initials? That's because this is a form that was a PDF that Samson created and added in. The residential property disclosure, just in case you try to do something like this later. This is an MVAR form or a form created by somebody else. You cannot add signatures and initials to a form that's already been created by them. They've already got the slots in here. You can change who's signing, but I can't just randomly put signatures and initials all over. Once it's been signed and comes back as a PDF, or if you've uploaded it from your computer, I can do with it whatever I want. But right now it's still in the interactive state, and I'm creating the form. Well, I can't change MVAR's forms, so I can't add signatures and initials to them. So but see, this form is a form created by us or a form that was uploaded. I can do that stuff to them. So it is smart to know and it really becomes permissions and all that kind of stuff on what you can do to their forms, what you can't. Now, once we sign them, you'll see later we can update them later. But just know if you click on it, you're like, why can't I add a signature? It might be because it's still in the creative spot. Like, see, here's one of their forms. I can't add the stuff in here because this is their form they've created. All I can do is work with what's in there right now. Does that make sense? You'll see in a second where you get their form back in. I'll show you where you can do that. All right, so I'm all done. I want to save and share. So it's saving what I did. It's going to set up share here in a second. All right. Now what I've done is I've made my page a little too big so you can't see it. So, all right. Now, so this comes down to an important page here. I'm sharing 6 documents. You can see up top. Shows the 6 documents that are going out, right? Now, to answer your question before, even though Sally and Mike Briggs are in here, I'm not sharing to them, okay? I've got 25 fields that could be sent to Sally. I've got 25 fields that could be sent to Jeff, or 29. I've got 5 that have been assigned to Steve LaFave if I wanted to share with him. I'm not going to share to them, right? Because I'm just getting assigned by buyer right now. So I'm going to send to Steve. I'm going to send to Jeff. The other key thing is it defaults to can sign. Don't go in and change this to can fill and sign or can edit unless you want somebody to be able to update their documents, but I would highly, highly advise you not to send it to a client that can change the documents and send it back to you. Just keep it at the can sign status. The other one that comes in handy over here is if you wanted to send it to somebody as a CC situation, they weren't going to do anything, you can select view only. So you see that's this top one here. But for now, everybody can sign. Jeff can sign, Steve can sign. I'm rocking and rolling, right? Now, I can enter a custom message in here. Hi, Jeff and Steve. Thanks for signing the contract. Call me with any questions. So they'll get that. When they get the email over, they'll see my custom message there. You don't have to give one, but just showing you that you can write something in there. The other key one here, attach a PDF to the email. Now, what they're going to get now is the contract sent over so they can click and sign. They'll be able to read through it, but some people are going to want that separate PDF, right? In case they want to open it up and kind of really review it. It gives them a little more sense of security. I would tell you that it's not a bad idea to attach the PDF. There's no real downside to you. It just allows that person to download and look at it. Does Steve need it? No. Does a buyer possibly need a PDF to open up and look at? Yes. If I were going to share something with Mike Briggs, the other listing agent, or somebody else, title company, lender, I would always, 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 always attach PDF to email. Some of our frustration as agents the last 5 years has come in is that if an agent that uses dotloop just sends it over to me, but there's no PDF, now all of a sudden I got to click and log into dotloop and figure out how to download this thing so I can do something with it, right? Because I don't know how to use dotloop. So don't send it to other agents just in this dotloop form. Attach the PDF so they can use what you've got and do whatever they want with it, okay? So when in doubt, attach PDF to email is never a bad thing, but I'd almost always do it if I was using somebody outside of your close knit, your team, so to speak. All right, so attach PDF to email. I think we got our bases covered here. I'm going to share. Documents have been shared, waiting on others. Great, I'm done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. We're going to show you what the buyer gets from you. Oh, I don't want to do that. Hold on. I'm on Tim's computer. I got to log into my email. There's no way I know this password. I always get it wrong. Yes, second try. All right. So now it's going to see if I can anything else interesting. Donny Samson. So this is what comes over from my agent. Let me make it bigger so you guys can see it. So remember, Donny Samson was my agent here. I'm actually logged in as Jeff, right? Jeff the buyer. I gave his email. So Donny Samson, my agent, action needed. Donny needs you to sign 6 documents. That's what they're going to see. All right, they click on it. Get a little bit smaller. Okay. It's called Donny Class Test March 7th because that was the name of my loop, right? Remember I wrote, "Hi, Jeff and Steve. Thanks for signing the contract. Call me with any questions." All right, so it's labeled Samson Properties. It's clear it's from me. Now what they're going to do to sign is they're going to click View All Documents. Now what I wanted to show you here was, because I attached the PDF to the email, they got 6 copies of this email, or the 6 different documents. So they could download these and print them if they're old school. They really need to see it on paper and read it before that's fine. Now I've attached that PDF, so they've got that ability, right? So great, no skin off my nose. They got attached PDFs, but to sign it, you're going to tell your buyer to click the View All Documents. Coffee gets cold, it's terrible. All right, if you're worried about people being able to figure out how to use it, I know lots of people that are not so great at the internet, but I think if they can click the View All Documents button, it's pretty clear where to start here, right? Just so I want you to see it from the buyer's standpoint or your seller's standpoint so that you can talk them through it. If they call on the phone, you're like, "I don't know what you're seeing." It's pretty clear, right? It's even blinking at them in case they can't figure it out. Start signing. Seems like that's a good place to start. All right? So it's got a little tag on the left says sign, and there's a click here button. All right, so I'm going to click here.
So if they want to review, even though they hit start signing.
Yep.
they can
I'll show you that.
filter
I'll
up.
show you that one second. Yep. So Jeff Buyer. Now they can change their name to read how they want. They can change their initials. They have 2 choices. They either take the ones that dotloop gave them, or they can click draw signature, in which case they could draw it on their keyboard, or they could draw it with their finger. If they were using a phone or an iPad, they could actually draw their signature if they wanted. That would be used for everything. Most people are just going to select what's there, right? They're going to adopt and sign. To answer your question, yes, so I can scroll up and down and read here. I don't have to just go right to where I want. So they can read in this. They didn't have to open the PDFs and read.
Okay.
But if you're concerned, are they going to know where to sign? Well, once I click this, watch, I'm not going to do anything else. Okay? The screen will take me where I want to go, or where Donnie wants me to go. So Jeff just has to click. The other thing that it does here, which is different than other systems, is you see it gives me the dotloop verified 3/7/17 at 11:22 a.m. So this is exactly when they sign an initial or anything, which is cool in case that comes up later. All right, next place they had me sign was right here. Oh, you can also see, look, it made my green highlights and my red. See, I was messing around with fonts in there. It did come through to the buyer. Click. This is the fun part where I got to click all those pages. You can see it's real quick for the buyer. Takes them right to it. I'm not working on the fastest internet connection in the world, but it's still rapidly.
What if they see a problem?
If they see a problem that they don't like,
Yeah.
they can always click on the top, "I'm done." Okay, it will send it back to you. It'll say it's incomplete. You can update it. You have to reshare it with them. So you can they say, well, "Look, I didn't want 500,000 in there. I wanted 490."
Yeah.
They can click "I'm done." I stopped here. I don't want to do any more. See it on the top right? It'll come back to us and it'll say incomplete. They only filled out 15 out of 29 signatures. They'll probably call you and say, "Hey, we want to offer this." You log back in,
Thought about it.
change to 490, and reshare it with them.
Okay. And do all the signatures go off? Did I remember that when it comes back to you? Or do they have to completely re-sign that contract?
They'll probably have to re-sign. Once you make a change in a document, they're going to have to re-sign. I'm pretty sure they would have to. I haven't had a lot of experience with people cutting me off halfway and then redoing it. But I'm pretty sure you'd have to re-sign, which wouldn't be that much of a problem. You know, I mean, it obviously goes pretty quick. But the good part is, for you, you don't have to redo everything. You just have to redo that one spot and then click reshare. You know, it's not like you have to re-tag it 30 times. Almost done here. They can see how far it already done here, but it was saying 26 out of 29. They can see how many more they had to go up there. So once they're done, am I done? Well, here's a good indicator that they're done. Okay, if they ask, I don't know if I did it right. Did you get the red the blinky sign that said finish signing? Okay, now I know I'm done. Once they click finish, then they're done. They're done. I think it's supposed to pop something up. There it is. Okay. You're done. They could sign in. If they wanted to create their own account, they could. I don't necessarily think that they need to and sign it. They're going to get copies of everything emailed to them. But if they really wanted to have their own dotloop account for free and log in and view all these files at once, they can. They just have to give a password in here. It's already got their name and email address. But if people ask, do I need to create an account? The answer is no. But if they really wanted to, they could. If they were tech savvy and wanted to create a password and be able to log in later and see everything, they could. But they're going to get emailed everything, so they don't have to worry about that. I'm going to click done there. I don't want to do it. I'm going to kill that. You can see as the buyer, they got 6 emails back to them showing them all the documents they've signed in case they need to reference those later. So they did get that back to them. And now what I'm going to do is come back to my dotloop account. Now, you're not normally going to have to do this. It's confused because I just signed something, so you're normally not going to sign your own thing. But right now, I'm going to have to sign out and sign back in. Normally, you won't have to do that because you're not going to sign your own things as a buyer. But that's why it's confused, because they're like, you just signed this as a buyer. Now you're this guy. You're Jeff. So I'm going to sign back in. I always guess wrong. All right, so now in my loops, again, you're only going to have one profile. I got to come back into my agent profile because I was acting as an agent. Donny class test March 7th. That's what we're doing, right? So I left my computer. I came back. Where was I? All right, good. Oh, that was that fake one I did, remember? Hold on. That's the right one. Hold on. Let me clear this out real quick. Remember that one I said I clicked it accidentally and it was so this is Donny class test March 7th. You can see because it's got an address on it. This was one I was working on. All right, so I click in here. Now you can see on the right here, it's signed, 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 signed. Where's my buyer broker going? Oh. Did Steve sign it that quick too? Nice work, Steve. Normally he doesn't, but I think he knows I'm working on these classes now. See you in here? The other day he snuck in here. He was signing while I was sitting here. I had to run. So now what I could do is, you can see on the left here too, it says not submitted. So you can tell these are files I've worked on, right? Because it's got different tags to it. I'm going to scroll this one up. But all this is, optional. PDF, just in case you're wondering, that just means those are forms that we uploaded. Optional, it just means that those are actual interactive documents from MVAR. Doesn't really matter to you, but if you're ever wondering what the difference is, that's what it is. So I've got all these documents. Awesome. I just realized I need one more thing. It wasn't all in here. I needed give me something weird. I needed to write a,
Is 210 warranty in there?
it actually is. The warranty, policy, application, and brochure is in here. Let's say I needed I needed a release, just for argument's sake, okay? So what I'm going to do is I got 2 choices when I want to add a document. Because remember, we set up these templates to cover almost everything we think, but not everything. So I'm going to click Add Document. Now there are 2 places, well there's 3, but I'm not going to go into email now because that'll confuse people. But technically you can add documents right from your email. But Browse is finding on my computer. It is downloaded to my computer somewhere. It's a signed contract. It's a whatever. Like the other day, you had one that was on your computer, right? Signed listing agreement. A lot of times we get our listing agreement signed in person. I want to upload them later. Okay, no problem. Browse would be the button you would use to find that from your computer. Or templates is what we're going to do right now. That means I want to find another form that is not in this template, but I know it exists. Because people will email, they'll be like, this form isn't in here. It's in there. This is where you find it, okay? So, let me make the screen a little bit smaller. So I clicked, go back, so I clicked add a document, I clicked templates, and you can see it's got different libraries for you to go into. Now for some reason, it's going to the bottom here, which is the most likely used one, Northern Virginia Association of Realtors version now documents. This is where you're going to find every Northern Virginia Association documents. Some of you guys will have links to some of these other ones in here, some of you won't, depending on what permissions you have. But if you go into residential listing or residential purchase, it's only going to have ones that are associated with those types of deals. Down here, we'll have all of them. So click on here. Now, instead of scrolling through each one, which might take a while, the advice is to come in and just search. So if I start typing like release, it came up right away. Release of sales contract and deposit. Okay? Let's say we wanted the here's a good one. Appraisal contingency for all cash. Okay, that's not something I'll include in the template because it doesn't come up that often, right? But let's say we had an all cash deal. We wanted to add that. All right, so I click that. I click copy. Oh, I'm off the screen there, aren't I? Okay. So I click copy because I want to put this in my loop. 1 out of 1 was imported. Awesome. Okay. There's only one button to click, so you don't have to remember just one button. Now if I come back into my loop, what's there? Awesome. I added the form. Now I can work with it. It's in my loop. Appraisal contingency for all cash. I click on it. Buyer 1, Jeff's already in there. Seller 1, Sally's already in there. Perfect. Autofill. 2 roles have been assigned. Perfect. Sally, Jeff. I just added the form that quickly. Now, what I could do then is save and share up here. Jeff, 1 field has been assigned. I could send it to Jeff for a signature just that quickly. I added the form. It was already tagged. All I did was go through it. Jeff was right there. I'm not sending anything to Sally, right? I don't need to send this to Steve or Mike. But right now, I can send it to Jeff right there. I'm not going to right now because we don't need to go back and sign something because we already showed you how to sign that. So if I ever want to go back to my loop, let me do this. So I was in here. I did that quickly. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm done here. I click save. Where do I go from here? Well, this back left button always gets you back to your loop. So now I'm in my loop. I got some stuff working here, okay? So I got a couple options now. My buyer signed my contract. What do you think I'm most likely going to do next with it?
Send it to the other side.
Send it to the other side. Perfect. So I've clicked the 5 things. Now I don't want to send them my exclusive buyer agreement, right? But the others I want to send them, okay? So I'm going to click share. Think of share as like email, okay? They're kind of synonymous.
You don't really want to send the Samson Properties combined ABA and all that.
I might too because I want the seller to sign that as well.
Oh, okay.
So, you're right. I didn't have to or I could.
More info there, too.
Right. Yeah. So whatever you want to do there, but for this purposes, I'm sending it over. So who am I going to send it to now? Mike, right? I'm not going to send it to the seller directly. I'm always going to send it to Mike. So I'm going to send it to the listing agent. Now what do I got to do in here before I send it to Mike? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I attach my PDF. Share. I just emailed the whole contract to Mike with the PDF attachment or in dotloop. That quickly. Bang. I'm done. Yes?
When you share, I don't get a copy of share, right? That's the one thing that I wish they had it.
So you could add yourself, theoretically.
But you're still not gonna be sure that they got it, you know?
No, but are you ever sure anybody gets an email, I guess?
Yeah.
You know?
You call, I guess.
Yes, ma'am?
You just
Or
have
when
to
you
text.
send share with the listing agent, do you allow them can edit and sign? Or
Yeah, I saw that up there. You can allow them to edit in private, I guess is what it said up there. I already shared it with him, so he won't let me. Let me uncheck this because I want to get my box back up here to show you. Stop being pesty. Stop being pesty. I think I'm trying to move too fast for the computer.
I think that's too easy for them to edit and.
Well, even if they edit it, it doesn't. They can edit it to counter. It really would be pertinent if they had dotloop because then they could work with it, I guess. But they can't change something that you've done, so it's not like they can do that. Now, what would I advise if I ever get these check marks off? Then I take them off and back on. I'm going to smack you.
And I thought I remembered from the class, if anything's edited, then all the signatures are no good anymore.
Right.
Anyway, right?
When I ratified, and then I went, so my clients were the ones that our side ratified, I went in to put the ratification date in and erased their initials.
Okay.
Then I put the ratification date in and then sent it back over, but that worked. So I don't know if there was a trick to that, so they don't have to re-sign it or.
Right. There is. I'll show you.
You recommend it so that you send it to other side, listing agent or buyer agent or whomever, that you send it to review and edit and sign?
I'll show you one second. If I can ever get this.
But then it's no good anymore.
The count?
Go out and come back in.
It wipes out the signatures, you know? You edit it.
Well,
She
it makes
didn't
sense on
agree.
counter.
Right.
Counter makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes
So what I would suggest you do is, so let's use the buyer brokerage agreement because I didn't send that to Mike. So as I share and I click Mike, I would just do view only. Can edit in private lets them view, sign, fill out document. It can mess with it. I would just always go to view only probably when I'm sending an email to somebody. That way they can view it. Yes, they can add stuff on top of it. They can modify it, but they're not going to modify my actual document that I've done. They're just taking the copy of it and then editing it on top of it, which won't. If I take my piece of paper and I save it, well, now it's protected. So they're just using a protected version, which doesn't do anything to what I did. It won't send it back out for re-signature like Nora was talking about. But if I say edit in private, then it's all like they're working on the same piece of paper as me. So if they change it, then it can do stuff. So really I should select view only if I'm just sending to the other side. Yeah, that's what I would do, yes. I would never really let anybody edit my stuff.
I don't think so.
That would be me. So now that I've got, Danny, you want to hop in?
I'll be with you in just a minute.
All right.
But the Donnie,
One at 1 o'clock.
Oh, Danny's teaching the 1 o'clock.
Donnie, you
Yes.
have a PDF, they can download.
Yep, they can download PDF and edit that. Yep.
I would never ask them to review.
I would not let them to edit my thing. I would just you're attaching a PDF that they can edit on their own and send back to you. So I've sent it to the other side. I've showed you how to do that. Now, let's say I've got everything done and I want to submit it to, it's all ratified. I'm going to show you how to do counters and stuff in a second, a different vein. But let's say all this is good. We've got a ratified contract. We've got the other thing is in here, earnest money deposit form. Just know they're in here. Commission disbursements in here. So I can log in here. Fills in some of the information already. Put in the addresses in here. Buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. Great. Click autofill. So it's filled in some of this stuff for you already. Fill in the rest. So when I submit this file, I've already got half of it done for me, which is great. But know that the commission disbursement's in here as well. It always asks if you want to save before leaving, which is good in case you forgot to save it. So I'm done. I've got a good deal. I'm going to closing. Submit to review. So I don't share with admin, right? Don't worry about sharing to admin. Don't worry about sending it to Donnie. Don't worry about sending it to Cynthia. Don't worry about whose email is what. Just the submit to review button on the top right. It's going to ask me a couple things. Lender information. If it's a buyer, it's going to ask your lender information. We're trying to track First Heritage or other. Title company, Cardinal Title Group. Maybe you don't have a contract yet when you're submitting, or other. We're going to select Cardinal here. Click Next. Now, sale documents, yep. And we are the purchaser. This is if you want to type any kind of message to Cynthia. Sorry, we're closing in an hour. I stink, I owe you a drink. This is closing in 2 weeks. Let me know if I'm missing anything. This is my first time. Cynthia, this is my test. Don't worry about reviewing. Can't see myself. My eyes are getting bad. I can't. I'm trying to see what I'm typing up there and I can't see it. Don't worry about reviewing. Submit. On the top, folder has been submitted for review. Great. I'm a rock star. Now, you notice when I said submit, it said say sale documents there. If I had documents in another folder, then that's what, I think you had this the other day, maybe when I was talking to you.
Yeah.
If you added a folder here, so you had like listing documents or, you know, this was Donnie's personal stuff. Well, technically it would let me share any of those 3 folders. Now, obviously, sale documents it was the only one in there because that's the only one I was working on. But if you somehow added folders, that's where you would like, look, I'm only sharing you with this folder. I'm sharing you this folder. So that's where it said sale documents there because that was the only one that was in there. But technically, you could share any of those folders if you wanted to. You can rename them. For here, I'm going to archive it because I don't want all those other folders in here. But no, you do have the ability to add other folders within this. And you can share just the folder that you want to share with Cynthia to review when you click Submit for Review up there.
Do you have to buy that folder at all?
No, it defaults to the sale documents. You don't have to add any folders. They all came up in the sale documents no matter what. But just know that if you did add folders and then you went to submit it and you're like, I don't know what folder it is, well, the folder name's right here, sale documents, you know, is what it defaults to. In a listing, you'll see in a second, there's 2 that come up, but I'll show you that in a second.
What about copy of earnest money deposit or any extra thing?
Yes. So for a purchase, ideally speaking, I would like you to submit a folder 2 times. For a purchase, as soon as you do a earnest money deposit form and say you've made a copy of it and you've uploaded that, how I would add that copy is I click Add Document, I'd click Browse, and I've downloaded it to my computer somewhere, right? Probably either a picture of it or a scanned copy. So I'd select it there, and it would come over. So ideally, I want you to submit it when you've got an earnest money deposit. You still have to turn in the actual check, either mail it or turn that in. But I've submitted the loop through the earnest money deposit there, and then submit it again when you're at the end of the deal, maybe a week or so before closing. All my paperwork's in place. Now they've got it submitted. They can check it. If you're missing anything, they'll notice you back and say, hey, this all looks great except you're missing signatures on your buyer agency agreement. Well, now I've got a few days to get that signed, resubmit it, and they've approved it. Now you know your check's going to be there ready for you at closing. So ideally, I'd like you to submit the folder a week or 2 before closing if you want your check at closing. Now, if you don't really care, wait till it's done and, you know, we'll get the check to you when your folder's done. But we can't approve checks and have it ready for you unless we've had your folder submitted. So the earlier you send it in with all the forms signed, the better. On a listing, so I'm going to create a loop. It's a listing now, okay? I'm going to create a new loop. Donnie class listing March 7th. For fun. Select a template. Now I'm a residential listing, right? Create my loop. Now, a couple different things that come into play with listing. You learn a couple different skills here. Now, ideally speaking, if you create a listing agreement, and from here it's the same thing. For a listing agreement, you're really just doing residential listing. Say you're just doing these 2, okay? I'm going to click Open. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing again, but remember, don't worry about the admins. Now Steve's my listing broker. I'm the listing agent on this one. It's got task lists, right? Same kind of thing. All looks the same, just a listing side.
I would do the business disclosure because the buyer have to sign that off.
Sure, absolutely. So you could do that as well here too. So just to show you, I'm going to click Open. We're not going to go through the whole process of signing it again, but this would show you it's created a list. Well, let's create our buyer and seller again. Let's do Jeff's the buyer.
I thought you were doing the listing.
I am, but so I wouldn't even know the buyer, right? So technically, let's take that out.
But the listing is no buyer yet.
Right, that's what I wasn't thinking. That's what CC said. It's my fault. I wasn't thinking about the fact that there was no catch you. CC was catching me. All right, so Sally's the seller. That's my client. I'm gonna add the person. Listing agent is me, right? Listing broker is Steve. We're good to go. Let's put an address here just for fun. So it'll translate to my forms. Listing information, you could put in expiration, listing date, price. You don't have to, but you can. You can click autofill here. Now it's going to tell me how many roles were filled here in a second. 3 roles, 14 fields assigned. All right, great. Way to go. Sally, Samson Properties, address. 2 keys here. Sally's the seller. And this is going to say, can be signed by listing broker Steve LaFave. Perfect. So if I create the document here to send to him, then we're good to go now. So I created it, did it all the way down. Scroll to the bottom real quick just to show you past the listing agreement, a couple other forms that we brought in. It's got to catch up. It's coming. So as the address here, Sally's going to sign here. This was that disclosure, or the marketing services that we said to add. So we got buyer and seller here. Or buyers would be here, but Sally's here. We know who that is. So we added our stuff, right? It all looks like it came over okay. It's tagged the signatures. We filled out all the stuff. Now I'm not going to send it out for signature, but I would click save and share, correct? And I would send it out for signatures. I'll at least show you what it looks like. So if I click share, whoops, wrong button. You can see here that if I send it to Sally, it would have 14 fields assigned. If I send it to Steve, she'd have 11. We're not going to send it to a buyer, but if we did, it would have 3 fields assigned for them. That was for that disclosure where the buyer was on there, right? So I could send this to Steve and Sally to sign right now. I'm not going to because we've sent enough out there. Oh, yeah, attached PDF I would do as well. Thank you. So now what a lot of times what do we do is we get a listing agreements in and we sign them in by our hand, right? So we would upload them. I wish I had a listing agreement, dang it. So template. So I'm going to add a document. Now is it from a template or am I browsing that? Browse, good. You guys are going to have to bear with me here because I did not upload a listing agreement. So let's pretend like this is my listing agreement. Came in, it's called Danny's All-in-One. Now, it's all signed. It's good to go. It's actually just a picture of our staff, but who cares? Pretend it's a listing agreement signed. Now, what do I want to do? I don't need this one anymore, right? Because I've got a Danny's All-in-One that's my new listing agreement that's signed. So what I can do is I can hover over it and drag it. And this is, Pat, what we should have done on the phone the other day is instead of having that weird name, you could actually just replace it. See how it says replace with? It asks you to make sure. Now that's the new exclusive right to listing agreement, so it's already named for me, and I don't have 2 of them on there the rest of the day. Now, I can rename that if I wanted to or whatever. The other thing I can see here is the history, which is important. If I've ever replaced something, it'll show you what I've done before. Okay, so it shows you in case you're like, uh-oh, I want to see what happened there because I didn't mean to do that. Can I get the old copy back? On the right here, you can click history and find that out. Okay? Now, let's suppose I get an offer in on my listing. Normally when I get an offer in, it's in what kind of form? PDF, right? I save it to my computer.
Browse.
Now I want to work with it. So I'm going to click Browse. And I did save one of these. There it is. Offer. I upload my offer. Okay, bang. I can open it up. Great, they made an offer on my property. Chris Noster's my seller. They offered $490. That was nice of them. I don't really like it, but they offered $490, okay? Buyers signed it. Great. Now, before, I'd have to do a lot more stuff. I'd have to print it and go take it in signature. I'd have to mark it up, rescan it, all these other kind of things. Well, now what's cool about this is I can edit this all by my lonesome here. The first thing I can do is I take this file in. Let's say it was turned the wrong way because people don't know how to send over scans correctly. I could rotate one page to the left or right because say they sent it to me wrong. Or I could rotate the whole document because they scanned the whole document in the wrong way. I could rotate the whole thing left. Now, if it's upside down, left twice to get all the way back around. So now I can manipulate this document without having to print it and rescan it to make sure that each page and everything is looking straight. The other thing I can do, I can split it. Because if you look at this offer, they're normally what, 20, 25 pages, depending on how many addendums they've pulled in? Well, maybe I don't want to work it all as one. I want to split it up a little bit. So looks like my last two pages are my lender letter, got an earnest money deposit check, then I've got some other addendums here, right? So let's do this. I want to split this document. I want to split it into 4. Now you can split it into 2 or 26. Okay, I don't care what you do. Split it into 4. I can say lender letter is page 24 to 25. I can say deposit check is page 23 to 23. I can say contract is page 1 to 16, we'll say. Obviously, I would probably look what the actual page numbers are if I was doing this for real, but I wanted to give you an idea. Addendums, 17 to 22. So it was constantly updating as I changed 1 to 16. The math was smart enough to make sure that each page was accounted for. So I can say I split this into 4, split document. That quickly, if I come back to my loop, I got contract, I got addendums, I got deposit check, and I got lender letter. Now I can work with 4 separate files instead of having to work with all of one, which is cool if you needed to split it up to send around to different people, or I just didn't like to have one big pile. I don't like 30 pages. I want 4 different things. I'll manipulate them separately. Now you can keep it all as one as you want. That's fine, but just know that you have that ability, which to me is really cool, especially if there's 6 pages in there that I'm like, I don't need these. Get them out of here. You know, I would have just been. I want to split it into 2. I want 1 to 24 is my contract. 25 to 30. Get out of here. Call it trash. You know, I don't want to see this anymore. It's the Remax 6 different disclosures they sent over. I don't need to see. Whatever it is. Okay, it's the short listing I didn't really need for some reason, or whatever it is. It's the buyer's sappy love story. I wanted to get it out of there. I don't need it anymore. I'm just giving you examples. I don't care what it is, but just know that ability's in there. So now I want to work with the contract because my seller wants to make a counter. All right. They want to do 500. So what I can do is I can go up to add. Look at all the things I can add. I can add a signature, initials, text, date, name, checkbox, radio button, or strike through. I'm going to add a strike through. As soon as I click that, it gave me this little bar. strike through, add a text box right there. I'm going to type 500,000. I can even center it. I can make it blue. Whatever I want to do. I can add an initial. Now, who do I want to initial that? Sally Seller, right? Bang. That quickly, I just crossed through the 490, added a 500, and added an initial right there. That's pretty slick, right? So now I didn't have to do all that kind of printing and writing and all that kind of stuff. I could manipulate this from my laptop at home, my phone if you're really slick, or your iPad, and kind of go from there. Now the other thing I can do is I've got to add Sally in here to sign it, right? So I add Sally Seller. Now, I don't want to have to do that, especially if there's two, to all my pages, correct? So what you can do is, let's see if I get this right the first time, is as soon as I went over that and did the arrow and dragged it over like this, it popped up some hotkeys on the bottom right. Now you can't see that, but if you were on your own screen, you could see it. So it tells me to copy the field, I'm going to go, is that an X? X, Shift, and C. So Shift, X, and C.
You can see it on the bottom right here on the screen.
Yeah, bottom right up there. See where it says copy field, delete field, select multiple fields, save document? Yeah, it gives you the hotkeys in the bottom right. Now the only thing to watch is before I have my screen zoomed in so much, the first time I did this training, I couldn't see it over there. So make sure if your screen zoomed in that you're not missing it over there. But as soon as I went like this, it showed me those hotkeys. Now as you get better, you're going to know what they are. But Shift, X, and C.
It doesn't matter which computer, Mac or.
It'll give you different keys for each one. Yes. Yeah. So now I'm going to do, so now it says X, Shift, and V. So I'm going to do is Shift, X, and V to paste. Why are you not showing me it? Don't be difficult with me. No, it needs these hotkeys. I have yet to do this correctly when I'm sitting in front of a class until I'm by myself and it works fine.
The X, Shift, V.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing. There it is. It's Command. All right. So I've hit Command, Shift, and V. Maybe the X means Command, and I'm just reading it as actually X. So then look how slick that was. It brought it right up. So I can Command, Shift, V. Now I've got a paste that I can go wherever I want. So I can just drop it here. Command, Shift, V.
And another one just pops up.
Yep. And just let me drag it wherever I want. I can roll down. Command, Shift, V. Bang. Command, Shift, V. Now, let's say, this is especially slick if I've got two sellers. So I've got an add an initial. Okay, so I add an initial here. I made it for Sally. I clicked add an initial. Okay, and I want that to be Steve, for argument's sake. All right, Let's say C was my second buyer. So I do the whole thing, go over it again, Shift Command C. So I've got that copied. Shift Command V, look how slick that is. So now I've got both, which really helps if anybody's tagged 25 pages with two sellers, and they got to come load each one. It's bringing Sally and Steve.
Shift Command V or C?
C to copy, V to paste. So Shift Command V, look how slick I am. I'm really pretty cool. Up, there I am.
So you're doing this every time as a listing agent?
If I get an offer in. Now the other thing is, okay, so let's save this. I'm done with it. All right. Okay. So let's say that I did.
Very first page, you just had one seller's initial.
Yeah.
Where you change your price.
Yeah.
This is, we have a contract on your listing, right?
Yeah, I was just using that as an example. I mean, obviously, if there were two sellers, I would add two. I was just showing you all how to do a cross through. You can do that with anything. Remember, we could do.
I know, but you have to add a seller if you change the buyer. You change the buyer offer the less, and you're changing it, and have a buyer initial price.
No, they're going to do that on their own.
Oh, they all done?
Right. So I can't mark it for the buyer because I don't know if they're going to agree to it.
Oh, that one.
Remember, I'm just adding it for my seller. Then once I get them to sign it, I'm going to send it back to the other agent, and then it's on them to agree or not. But what I've done is be able to manipulate this document and save it. I did something funky in here when I was doing all my things.
Too many things.
Found two fields of the same size in the same location. Please remove one or more of the overlapping fields. Well, tell me where I did that. I was doing so much stuff. At some point, I put two fields on top of each other.
I think the initials are too big.
It might be.
Halfway, and you put another.
Just gotta make them a little smaller, I think.
Yeah, I think I was.
I think they were crossing the line.
I was messing up. I think I actually probably created multiple ones at least once because I was hitting so many
They're just
keys.
crossing the divider line.
Well, that was okay.
That shouldn't matter. All right. I'm not going to worry about it for right now. All right, so the one thing I want to show you as well is, okay, let's go back to our regular buyer loop. It works both ways in that, so we wrote this contract and we sent it to the seller, right? Well, they normally don't accept the first one, right? So they send us a counter. Well, our counter, we normally save and we're going to browse, bring it up. Yes, it's the same one I just used, but I'm just using an example. So I bring up this offer. I could call it counter offer. Here's the other thing I could do though. I can split this the same way, right? So I could be like contract, disclosure, and conventional financing addendum. I'm just making this up just for our use here. Okay, split documents, home inspection. I can split it in all five, right? Well, I'm done. So it brings me back to my loop here. And now, what I can do is, now I already created a contract before, right? Well, now this is a new one though. The old one's no good. This is their counter. Do I want to replace it? Yes. Do I want to replace the disclosure? Yes. Do I want to replace the conventional financing in them? Yes. Okay. Well, now I'm working with the most current data.
But you do have a PDF original one.
Yeah, I've saved it. Yeah. So these three. Now let's say I want to open these. Okay. They counted at 490. Well, I can still do the same thing here, right? I can add a strike through. Probably want to put it on the number.
Did you find a way to
I did not. I'm sure there is, though. I need to find that out. Sorry, I forgot to ask. I can add my text, right? And then I'm going to add my initial. It's being very sensitive, not taking my stuff. There's my initial. All right, and I'm going to have the buyer do that because I'm on the buyer right now. So they counted at 490. I'm counting back at 500. I save. I could share with my buyer to initial the change because remember, they already signed it, the original one, right? You know, so we're only having to initial the changes now, so it's just the 2 or 3 changes. I could share it back with them. So you can see how it's easy to manipulate it back and forth once I get going and be able to really work with the contract. I didn't have to print it. I have to scan it. I have to get all these ugly, clean copies. It's staying clean. It's staying usable the whole time. And remember, I can look at the history here and find my old versions in case I, to take your point, I still have a saved one. Well, I can view or download any of the old files, or I can see all the counters back and forth if I wanted to. For some reason I got confused with that. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so a couple other things. You see there's a shaded out closing disclosure and MRS shortlisting. Because those aren't things that we can create in a system ahead of time, right? But we ask you to turn those in with your file. Well, all you got to do is download the shortlisting from the MLS. And then if I'm going to go to add it, I'm going to add it from my browse. Okay, so I just found the shortlist in my computer. I scroll down. And I just replaced it, right? Now my MRS shortlisting's right there. Perfect. My closing disclosure, same thing. Now most of the time you're going to submit these files before the closing disclosures come over, right? Because you want to get approved before closing. So really after the fact you want to come in and upload it. The reason I would do that is so that you had a closing disclosure in the file forever. If you were to come back to this loop in 6 months, your closing disclosure is signed there. But what that blank grayed out spots do is to remind you, you haven't done a closing disclosure or shortlisting here. This is a good place to add them in. So it kind of gives you a reminder to come in there and add them in, browse from your computer and replace them so they're already putting good placeholders in there for you. What questions do we still have? I kind of went through uploading stuff from a template, a form that's already in the computer, uploading it from your computer, taking documents that are offers that are sent over to you, manipulating them, striking through, adding signatures, adding initials, how to copy and do that quicker, how to share with other agents, how to share with your own people, how to send for signatures.
How do you mark a contract ratified?
Okay, that's a good one. So what I would do is,
You can edit actually.
so what I would do is,
Maybe edit.
right, so as soon as this contract came over, so it's really the same principle as we just did. The contract came over as a PDF that you've downloaded and uploaded. So all I would do is come back in here.
It was me sending it to them and we ratified it.
Okay.
So once I got their initials, I went and put the date in and then it erased all their initials.
Right, because you didn't,
Right.
because it was still a live document that they had to theoretically agree to that change.
So is this one PDF? The PDF?
Once it's been a PDF, then you can update that, Nora, but it was still in the interactive state would be my guess.
Well, if you have a contract, they're sending it back to you,
Right,
having agreed to everything, as long as they send it as a PDF, you could.
right. So you would take the PDF, if it's uploaded, like say this one, I can do, hold on. If this was sent back and it was ready for ratification, then I can just click on this.
Put the date on.
Yeah.
Just tell them to send you a PDF.
Put in my ratification date or add a date.
Add text, it's not add date, well, they got date in there. Cool. Add date.
He's very finicky, this thing.
Can we
No,
No.
because it's not interactive anymore. It's just a regular PDF. You can add text. It wasn't letting me. It was
You gotta be on the page.
click. There you go. Click to place field on the
You
doc.
gotta be on the page to
Page,
do it,
maybe try that.
No, because they don't know the difference. It was just like the thing. So it did it here. So click to add date.
So what is your finger action there, actually?
Click to place add date. So here's it's got an add date for me. I can click March 22nd, and I'm good to go. What is my finger action? Just left click, and then a left click again on what I want.
And it goes there, then you just click and drag where you
Yeah,
want.
and I'm just dragging.
Okay.
So I'm adding text, I'm adding date, and then I can move that to wherever I want. Now, theoretically, I would come down to yeah, see, it doesn't know. Because this is an uploaded PDF, the computer has no idea what's what anymore, right? It doesn't know if I'm signing that flyer for my dad or a contract, okay? All it knows is there's a PDF here. You can do with it what you want. Where you were having problems before, Nora, is it wasn't a saved PDF. It was still a document that they had just signed. Then you came in and signed on top of it. If you download it to your computer, then it's uploaded back as a PDF. Now I can do whatever I want with it. Right. So I can add a date here.
Yeah. Right click on that too. Okay.
There you go. So it's got an added date. I can put that right here. And today's March 7th.
Press on that, you know?
No, left click. It just wasn't taking my click at first.
So the listing agent put the date of the ratified.
They could, or the buyer agent could. Whoever has the contract last. But
I thought whoever received it last.
whoever received it last with the signed in there, yes.
Do we need to initial on that box?
No.
need.
No, you can always add the date in. As long as everything's been signed up and buttoned up, you can add the date without a signature in there.
If we can just speak to the contract, we
I'm
propose
not
it
asking
to
them
the
to
contract letter.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Yeah, we can split the contract like separate, right? Could we combo together?
You cannot put them back together, unfortunately. You can only split, you can't merge. So once they're split, they're split. Now you can click 3 or 4 and send all 4 together, but you can't now merge them into one contract again. Yeah, you can't merge, unfortunately, just split.
We're gonna need it split for turn-in anyway, right? Or does it matter?
Theoretically, but you don't have to. You can put it all in one. Put full ratified contract. Yes, ma'am.
I had a break in service yesterday. I was almost finished my lease and lost the whole thing.
Oh, no.
One thing she told me was to be sure and save every few pages,
Yep.
which I wasn't doing.
Yep.
So just a word.
FYI, if you're filling out a long contract, saves are on the top here. Just click save as you're going through, and they also have a hotkey for save. Actually, you can see in the bottom here, Command-Shift-S. So if you just are constantly clicking that as you're kind of working, it's going to be saving it as you go. So you can use the hotkey or click save. And that's really the same thing with zip forms. You know, if you got interrupted your internet connection, you were halfway through, all of a sudden you might have lost everything you did. So it's a good idea to always save as you're going. Yes, ma'am.
Most of us go through that one.
Saving all of these forms as PDFs on their computer as well as keeping them in the loop? I mean, what's everybody doing?
I would personally, because I'm a big Dropbox guy, and I like to be able to have those files saved to my computer forever. But in theory, you don't have to with this anymore, because your loops are never going to go away. They're going to be there forever. You can always access them again. So it could be you're almost like, it could, unless the system is down, which we had for the last week, which everybody's aware of. Well, if you try to get in there, you're aware of it. It was a tough 6 hours, but theoretically, your loops will be there forever and always able to access from wherever you are. It could be almost your default Dropbox. If you're on your phone or your mobile or wherever, you can always access those files. Now, to me, would I save stuff locally? Probably, because that's how I am. And it's easy for me to click, and I've got separate folders and all that kind of stuff. But
My own file.
that's what I would do. But you don't have to.
What I did was I kind of printed everything out at once and then saved it on my desktop instead of saving every single.
I have my
Donnie?
folder.
Yes.
I ask you, when you go on a listing,
You
Yep.
don't have to
is
have
there
one
any
folder.
way
It comes-
on any
Huh?
laptop, iPad,
I'm
or
not a
anything,
computer
somebody
geek,
can
but-
just electronically sign these
Yep,
forms?
they can sign right in front of you. So,
Talking about that, so
Yeah,
that
I did
was.
that.
yep. So let's say I've got my listing
sign off on the listings. Of course, some people are not around. I have military that are not around, but
Well, I did first, I just view only, I send them over.
I do
complete
that
package.
too. You and I do the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
view only.
Let
You
them
can-
review,
you
let
can
them
tell
read.
me if it's not good,
Right.
view only first.
Before you get there.
Mm-hmm. We spend forever staging those, so they've seen the forms for a while.
But sometimes they
Somebody
do,
asked
but
me
they don't
Sunday,
do.
they said, does anybody live in this house? Or is this house
So-
staged, you know? I said, 4 children and 2 working parents live in this house. Right, they have a mean realtor.
You can, if you're on your iPad or phone, one of the selections is host an in-person signing event, and you can have it so that the in-person, it'll say like pass the computer to them and they can sign right there. I didn't really teach this as a mobile class. In the links I send out every week, there is like a mobile guide,
So it
one of
has
the
to be
links.
in the mobile app.
No, or what you would simply do if you were on a desktop right here is once I've shared it to them, I would just have them, I mean, theoretically, I signed right here, right? Just say log into your email. It's right there. You can click and sign on the computer right here. So what I would do is if I had it on my laptop, I'd be like, here, log into your email. It's right there. Because really, I was the buyer. When I was sitting here doing the explanation, I wrote the contract. Then I just logged into my email as the buyer, pretending I was Jeff, and I logged. So if you've got a laptop right there, just pass the laptop, turn it over and say, log in your email, sign it. If it's a mobile app or iPad, then you could, or a phone, you could just pass them. It says, open an in-person signing. That's like if you're in the field, say you wanted to write up a quick addendum for changing the settlement date, or we need this fixed, or the walkthrough form. You can easily fill that out, and the buttons in there will let you in-person sign it right there. So they can turn, click it, sign right there.
Use your mobile.
You can't. A laptop, you can do the same thing. It just has to go through the email.
No,
So they would open up their email and sign right
They
there.
would have to go through and sign.
no,
Yeah.
on the cell phone, it shows the same as the Cardinal, logo and Spring, it shows all here.
I don't know. I haven't done a lot on the phone yet.
I can't log in because I forgot to like it.
Okay.
I just forgot.
You forgot your password?
Oh, gosh, I just put it down.
When you go to log in, there's a forgot your password
I
button.
know, but my computer is okay, I can log in on phone, so.
I would the apps are they're very well done. The iPad apps and phone apps. You aren't gonna have 100% functionality like we have here, but you're gonna be able to do almost everything you can here. So that can really help you a lot to be able to do stuff on the go.
Never loses anything.
Somebody opts to have their own personal signature instead of the two provided by
Yeah.
dotloop. Will dotloop copy that and apply it to the rest of those boxes?
If they draw their own, yes.
Or their own?
Yep.
The next one will be on.
Yep. It'll draw them all the same way. So if they want to draw, they just have to draw it once. It'll copy that through. For any time they sign something, it'll be that drawn one. Yes. So if they want to make sure that it's them, people are like weird about, well, anybody can be signing for me, and they wanted to write 3 dots and that's my signature, they'll show that for everything.
If they've got me assigned to Tyson's Corner and I want to change it to him, how do I do that?
You have to email me. Only Evan can do it.
Yeah, that's about.
Email me and I'll have Evan switch it. Wherever that was, it went off the original phone list where we had everybody assigned to.
They kind of sat me.
All right. Everybody have a good day. If you have any other questions, let me know. If you don't have access to your account, email me. I'll make sure I set it up correctly for you.
Thank you.
Yes.